So normally I'd be blinded by glare and struggling to see my fish finder screen, but not anymore. I made a custom sunshade that solves that problem. And in this video, I'll show you exactly how to make one yourself using a 3D printer and free software. If you're new to 3D printing, don't worry. I'll walk you through everything step by step. Okay, so here is what you're gonna need. You're gonna need a computer. It doesn't have to be a MacBook, but you'll need a recent computer with either Windows or Mac OS. You'll need to download some free software. For this tutorial, I'm gonna be using Fusion 360. There's also Blender, Tinkercad, and there's a few others. I'm not gonna name them all. Then what I recommend is a digital caliper. Very useful. A tri-square measuring device, like a measuring tape. And then finally, you're gonna need a 3D printer. Now, if you don't have one of these, what you can do is go to a public library. A lot of libraries actually provide printing services. If you don't have a library near you, you could always look up printing services online. They'll print stuff for you. And if you are in the market for a 3D printer, I do recommend these Bamboo Lab 3D printers. They are a bit more expensive, but they're very turnkey and very easy to use, especially for beginners like myself. Now, I am gonna drop a link in the video description for the budget Bamboo Lab, which is the A1 series. It doesn't have an enclosure like this, but it's half the price. I think it's about $300 or $400 on Amazon. So I'll drop that link below for you guys to check it out if you're interested. Now let's go ahead and get into the 5 steps that I use to create my own shade cover. Step 1, research existing products on the market. So you're gonna Google search sunshade cover for your fish finder. Take note of designs that you like, read reviews to get an idea of where the flaws may exist. Keep in mind, the more research you do now, the less problems you'll have later on. Step 2, measure your fish finder. You'll need the measurements of your fish finder head unit to proceed. First, look at the user manual or documentation that came with your fish finder to see if there's a template or if measurements are included somewhere. If no measurements or template files are included, you can sketch the outside perimeter of your fish finder and use that sketch as a canvas to trace from. While measuring, you'll want to take note of the length, width, and depth of the fish finder head unit, as well as any obstructions that might prevent your shade cover from securing to the screen. Step 3, create a 3D file.
Okay, so first thing you're going to want to do is download the Fusion 360 software if you don't already have it. It's free for non-commercial use, and I'll include that link in the video description below. I'm going to go ahead and open the software now. Okay, now using the previous template or the sketched outline that you created, what we're going to do is import that as a canvas. So you go to Insert Canvas. Now that we have our canvas inserted, we're going to have to scale it. And to do this, you'll just right click here and go to Calibrate. Scaling is pretty simple. You'll just select 2 points on the image here, and I usually do it from left to right. Exactly. And we'll use that measurement that we took before. Great. And now we have a scaled. I have to do it. So next step is we're actually going to sketch the outline of our fish finder head unit, and we're going to use that sketch to start to design our shade cover. So after I've created a new sketch, I'm going to go ahead and utilize the Fit Point Spline tool, and we're going to work this around the outer edge. Now we'll just clean this spline up just a little bit by modifying these control points. And that looks about good enough. So now that we've got a outline of our fish finder head unit, we're going to be offsetting this. So we'll go to create offset, modify offset, and the offset amount that you choose here is going to be the thickness of your fish finder sunshade. So from experience, I prefer about 1.5 to 3 millimeters. So 1.5 millimeters is a good starting point. You can go back and change this later on, so don't worry if you select a slightly smaller value. And now that we have our sketch offsetted, we're going to select the space between those two. And then we are going to extrude. And this is the cool part here because you'll see everything go from 2-dimensional over to 3-dimensional. Now in this case, I'm going to extrude it about 150, maybe 175 millimeters. This, the amount that you select here is going to be the height of that sunshade. So it really depends on how, if you want it low profile or if you want it to be, you want more coverage, then you'll make sure to select a higher value here. Now, here's where you'll want to decide how you want to fix the sunshade onto the head unit. So from my research, I've decided to go with a kind of front and back lip that clips on to the head unit. So I'm going to go ahead and start to create that. I'm going to go back and just modify that sketch that I previously created. And we'll just create a line. That might actually be a little too close. I just want to do. Okay. You'll see now we have this little lip section here. And we'll want to do the same for the bottom. We'll do the same for the bottom. And now that I have those two sections, what I can do is select both of these. And I can just extrude this out. I'm going to select the same thickness value that I used before, 1.5. And now we have a backing section for our sunshade. Okay, so now that we have the back lip created, we're going to create an offset plane from that back lip. And we're going to be using that measurement that we took of the depth of the head unit. So I'm just going to construct an offset plane from that lip, and 12 millimeters was the thickness value. Fantastic. And now we will just create a sketch on top of that offset plane. Nope. An easy way to do this is just to project this geometry and then we're going to extrude this out 1.5 millimeters. And now we have our bottom and top lip. Now we'll also want to do this for the bottom as well. Okay, so now we have a very basic design. So the final step here is to refine and cut the shade cover so that it is aesthetically appealing and so that it has more curvature. You'll see that a lot of the sunshades have this curvature going down, so we'll just do that real quick. It's pretty simple. we'll create a sketch right here. Okay, that's fine. And easiest way to do this is just to use a spline tool. And I'm just going to do something like now we'll just be using this shape here to cut through the bodies. And so I'll just do E to extrude. We'll go to symmetric and all. And a cut will cut through this. Boom. These sketches, and there you go. That is now our first prototype design, and it is almost ready to print. Okay, so before we print this, there are two issues that we might have. One is this model may actually be too large for our print bed. Two is that it requires supports to print. Now, printing with supports is not that big of a deal. Personally, I just find it to be kind of messy and it gives you very inconsistent results. So I'm going to avoid printing with supports, and what we're going to do is split this model into two pieces. That'll make it easier to print and will prevent us from having to use supports. So to do that, it's pretty simple. You'll just make sure that your origins are visible. You go to modify, and then you will do a split body. And then splitting tool, you can select, so you could select this plane right here. I believe this is the Y plane. Or you could also go the other direction. I'm going to actually do it this way, so I'm going to hit OK. And now you'll notice we have two neat little bodies that we can print. So now we're actually ready to print.
Step 4, print your design.
So printing is as easy as 2 clicks in Fusion. From the top, all you have to do is click on Utilities, click Make 3D Print, and then select your slicer, select the object, and then hit OK. So in your slicer application, at least for Bamboo Studio, all you have to do is click Slice Plate, Print Plate, and then Send. And after the printer is done printing, you'll have your first 3D print. So I realize that I'm leaving a lot of detail out of this step, but bear in mind that there are a lot of very specific settings in terms of layer height and speed and all of those different things that go into 3D printing. And we're not going to cover that for this video. This is just a beginner tutorial. If you want to learn more, there's a lot of content out on YouTube, or you could even take a course on Udemy like I did. But for this tutorial, we're going to keep things simple, and we're going to just stick with the default settings on the slicer. There are actually some lessons that I learned during this, and I just wanted to give you guys a few quick tips before you actually hit that print button. First tip I have for you guys is when you're printing, to save on Filament, what you can do is print only the outside of the shade cover. Now, this will allow you to test fit before you print the entire thing. So that way, if you need to go back and make adjustments to the model, you can do so. Also, I recommend using PETG over PLA. PETG is just better suited for this application. It's heavier duty. It tends to hold up a lot better in the sun. Doesn't warp like PLA. So do yourself a favor. Just skip PLA and go straight to PETG. I also am including the PETG that I used in this video in the video description below. Now, if your model doesn't fit on the build plate, you can split the model into two pieces and print those pieces as separate pieces, and you can join them later on. You can do this either in Fusion or your slicer program. And last, I do recommend avoiding supports just altogether if you can. Sometimes it's just as easy as reorienting your model so that you're printing it in a way that it doesn't need supports. And that about wraps it up for my tips on printing.
Finally, the step 5 is to test and iterate. Now that you have your first working design printed, you'll want to actually test the product. Now, I spent several weeks testing my first design, and that's when I realized that there was a critical design flaw. That is that the clips on the bottom that were used to secure the sunshade to the head unit were actually breaking. So I changed the design to use a screws to secure the sunshade using the flush mounting holes. And to make things even more durable, I ended up using these heated inserts, which I bought from Amazon. Okay, so here is my final product. This thing is awesome, and it fits my Garmin perfectly. Now, if you like my design and you have one of these Garmin Echo maps, feel free to make your way over to my Etsy shop. I'll put the link in the video description. You want to support the channel, I greatly appreciate that. And last but not least, if you think I've left something out, or if you think you have a better way to make one of these, feel free to throw your comments below in the video description. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.